Hey everyone, I'm Nick L'Ecuyer from Mortgage Wellness. I'm joined today by Peggy Hill at the Peggy Hill Group. Now, once a month, we get together to talk about industry trends, where the housing market is at, where it's heading,
right,
and also interest rates and where they're heading. So it's very timely, obviously, Peggy, because this week marks another Bank of Canada announcement.
One more gone.
One more gone. So no news is good news. What do you think?
No news is no news.
Yeah. So the Bank of Canada has held rates. It was highly anticipated that the Bank of Canada would actually hold.
And why is that?
Well, inflation is down. So that's the key indicator, right? Like that's the number that everybody really needs to be watching is that inflation number. The Bank of Canada has been very forward with saying that until they get inflation to that target of 2%, they will crank rates again. Now, we were just talking about some of the comments that came out of today's announcement, and that was one that you identified, right? That they said, if we don't get inflation under control, then what happens?
They will raise again. But I personally think that is not why they didn't raise the rates this time. They don't need to because the bond market is doing all the hard work for them.
Yeah, so for those listening, the bond market drives fixed interest rates. Prime rate, which is ultimately controlled by the Bank of Canada, controls variable rates.
Right.
Now, as a reality check, prime rate is currently 7.2%. Fixed rates almost across the board are at 6% or greater. So there's still a little bit of a gap between the two, but generally speaking, not a lot. And generally speaking, everyone that we speak to in our mortgage business is unhappy with the interest rate that they're getting.
Of course.
You know, there was this trend, people were talking about like, you know, I want a short-term fixed rate. Now, you've always been saying you would take a variable rate, and I'll explain why that is in a moment. But people have been taking short-term fixed rates. Those short-term fixed rates are higher than 5-year fixed rates because, and the reason why people want them obviously
They're
is
popular.
Well, it's obvious. You know, they're expecting interest rates to come down. So why would I take something for 5 years at a very high interest rate when I know I can rebuy it at a lower price, a lower interest rate in like 2 to 3 years? 1-year rates, very high. 2-year rates, still very high. Like in most cases, 2-year rates are at 7% or greater. 3-year rates, 6.5%. Not bad, right? But we're expecting that interest rates will come down at some point.
Sometime next year.
Okay, so let's chat about that because that's one of the things that everybody wants to know. We now know where we are. Let's talk about where we're going
for interest rates. And I just want to clarify that I believe that people that have ridden the variable train this long should just keep riding it.
Yeah.
I don't suggest that people go out and start with variable right now, or they could. I mean, the harm's already been done. But if you are in a variable and you have been on the variable, I would just continue with the variable.
Well, and yeah, so we say this a lot in our office. Like, you know, the people that took a variable rate back in January of 2022 took those variable rates when prime was at 2.45%.
Right.
They probably got a discount because that's how variable rates work. You get a discount to prime minus 1%. So their interest rate at that time, 1.45%. Sounds fabulous, right?
Beautiful.
Now, fast forward until, you know, fall of 2023 right now, they've seen 10 increases. In a lot of cases, they've seen an increase to their payment of about 60%. A payment, we did a scenario just the other day, you know, a client who say had a $600,000 mortgage would have had a $2,400 a month payment. That payment currently is more like 6.2% and has gone up to $4,000 a month. $2,400 a month to $4,000 a month. It's very significant. Now, those clients, those people that took adjustable rate mortgages and variable rate mortgages have watched all that happen. Obviously, they're very upset about this. The only thing that's going to make them more upset is if they make the wrong decision to lock in right now to one of those 6% fixed rates in the midst of everyone talking about an inevitable decrease to interest rates. When that inevitable decrease comes to interest rates, they're now locked into a 6% interest rate for the next 3 years.
That's the problem.
Right.
And penalties are huge. So really think this through if that's your situation.
Totally. So, you know, again, to your point, and this is my advice, if you're at a variable rate, you ride that out. You don't lock it.
You've already ridden it.
You've already felt the pain.
Already.
Yeah, you've already felt the pain. Okay, so why would somebody want to take a variable rate today rather than a short-term fixed rate?
Well, because I think a lot of people are thinking that the rates are going to fall or start to drop
Exactly.
the middle of next year. So that's not 3 years from now. That's 6
right.
months from now.
That's
So
right.
once you lock into a 3 year, it's very expensive to get out of it.
Yeah.
And I think people like the freedom of making moves. And so, that's a big pill to swallow.
Totally. Yeah, I totally agree. You summarized it perfectly. Variable rates will still be a little bit above a 3-year fixed rate right now. For example, a 3-year fixed rate might be 6.5%. A variable rate might be closer to 7.
And
maybe
that's
a
not
little
enough
No.
of a spread for me.
It's about 0.5%.
Yeah.
Now, what we're going to talk about in a moment is the trend, like what we're about to see.
Right.
We're now at a pause. We may see an increase. We may see another pause, and then we'll see that first decrease. But then there's going to be a cycle of decreases. Okay, so Peggy, we know where interest rates are now.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people still are unsure of why house prices are where they are.
Well, I believe when interest rates go up, it makes the market less affordable.
Yeah.
So less people can buy.
And makes home prices go down. That's been proven now.
Because less people can buy.
Yeah.
Less people can qualify.
Yeah.
We still have sellers. So
Yeah.
when you're sitting on the market for 3 months and nothing is happening, it's logical to think that I have to reduce my price.
Totally. And as interest rates went up, house prices went down. Like we
Correct.
saw that month by month by month by month. So maybe for the benefit of those watching, just tell us where the market sits generally right now. I mean, we're lower than 2022, but
not by a lot. Absolutely, we're lower than the peak of 2022.
Totally, yeah.
Yes.
Year over year, like we're sitting here in October, for example, of 2023, proportionate to October 2022. How did things look?
Things looked almost how they look right now.
Same.
We're plateaued.
Yeah, gotcha. Now, I know the answer to this, but for the benefit of those watching, as interest rates go down, what's going to happen to home prices?
Things will go crazy again.
Yeah.
Because the fundamentals are still strong.
Yeah.
However, the supply issue was never solved, and they figured they bought themselves some time to fix that supply issue, and it was not fixed
through high interest rates.
Correct.
Yeah. So you and I agree on almost everything, but sometimes we have some different opinions on things as well. Yeah. So one of those things is you feel that these high interest rates is forcing a lot of buyers out of the market due to affordability.
100%.
And I think that another component of it is confidence, right? Like people just don't have confidence in the market, confidence in their purchase. They don't want to make that move because they don't know what lies ahead. But let's talk about the affordability piece. As interest rates went up, obviously, homes became less affordable, payments went up, and people stopped buying as a result.
Right.
So what impact do you think that has on the current market right now?
So our biggest challenge right now, as it was last year, is that we have lost our first-time buyers. We have made it virtually impossible for a first-time buyer to buy.
Yeah.
To buy a $650,000 townhome, they would need a $600,000 mortgage. Say that would cost them $4,500 to carry, and their income would be what, $160 necessary?
Likely higher. Like
higher. So $180,000.
Yeah, $160,000 to $180,000.
So I'm a
income.
first-time buyer. Where am I getting $180,000 in salary to qualify for your mortgage? I'm not. So then I'm forced to stay in the rental market. And the problem with that is that once you stagnate the first-time buyers in a market in Simcoe County where we bank on our first-time buyers, everyone else sits.
Yeah.
The $1 million plus sits. The $800,000 plus sit. The $2 million sit.
Because nobody's moving up.
Nobody can do anything. And that's why our market is stagnant right now.
Yeah. So, jumping back to that first-time homebuyer scenario, I love that because I talk about this every day with not even first-time homebuyers. I mean, just people who are borrowing mortgages. They need to know this, that at the street level, a first-time homebuyer who's moving from a rental where they're paying $2,100,
even if they were paying $3,000.
Yeah. They would need, for a $650,000 purchase, a minimum down payment touching $50,000.
Right. That's easy.
And
that was always the case.
Yeah. And if they can make that happen, they'll need, say, $180,000 in household income, assuming no debts at all, no student loans or anything. And that's not to government wages in a lot of circumstances.
No.
If both those people work for the city of Barrie, for example, I don't know if they're making $180,000 in household income.
clear with no debt? No.
Yeah. And then if they make it past those two first hurdles, they have the big down payment, they have the household income, they have a $4,500 a month payment waiting for them between mortgage and property taxes.
I would probably choose to sleep in the back of my car. That is way too much money for shelter. It is way too much money for shelter. It is, yeah. Now,
looking at it broadly, why wouldn't somebody move to Midland and pick up a $400,000 home then, for example?
I don't know that we're there yet. I don't know that Midland has that many $400,000 homes for sale.
Gotcha. You think that home still would be $500,000 in Midland?
I do,
let's say,
and it makes a big difference.
That's a great point.
You can't qualify, and like for you to go and buy a $400,000 home, like you are going way up north, and a lot of the work from home programs have now stopped. They've ceased.
Yeah. So my family lives in Oro-Medonte. There's a lot of people in Oro moved to Oro through the pandemic who are now returning to work 3 days a week, and those jobs are in North York, Markham, Toronto.
And
that is a tough commute 3 days a week.
Yeah,
like you're hitting the road at 7 a.m. sort of 100%. Thing, right? That makes things very difficult as well. Now, what's really interesting to me as well, and you probably heard me say this before, is we've now proven, like as Canadians, we've proven that we'd rather pay more for the home provided we get a much lower interest rate. $1.2 million home at 2%. I'll take it all day long. Fast forward to today, I'll take the same home at $900,000, like $300,000 less, but I don't want to pay that 6.5% interest rate.
Okay, but let's stop you right there.
Yeah.
What were the qualifications like when I was getting a $1 million mortgage?
Easier to qualify for.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah.
Produced a lower payment. No question. Right.
And the other thing is, so anybody watching that bought early 2022, I know you've taken a lot of criticism for buying in 2022 and getting those super cheap mortgage rates. But guess what? Over the 5-year term that you have, most of your money is going right to you. Yeah. It's not going to the bank. It's not going to interest payments. It is going to your principal. So at the end of the cycle, you are going to have way more money.
Yeah. So we run these amortization schedules, Peggy and I, because we're crazy about this stuff.
We're geeks.
And we'll run say $800,000 mortgage at 2%, and then we'll look at what the payment it produces, and then the proportion of principal and interest. Now, what I always usually like to say is like, if your principal payments, for example, are 60% of your total payments, 60 cents of every dollar is going back in your pocket. You're paying down your own mortgage.
Right.
If 60% of your payments are going to interest, 60 cents of your dollar is being thrown out the window. You'll never get any benefit to it, right? So you do make a very valid point. Like when interest rates were very low, more of your payment was going to principal.
It was the best time.
Yeah.
It really was the best time. I don't care what you were paying for a house. That money was going right to your equity.
Remember I was saying that we sometimes disagree on some points?
I know.
See, I would rather buy the $900,000 home, $300,000 less, take a short-term fixed rate mortgage, wait for interest rates to go down, and then wait for the house to go up in value.
Right.
But you still have to be able to afford that mortgage. Qualify in the meantime.
Qualify.
Right. So, I ran numbers yesterday on like a $400,000 mortgage. It was an alternative mortgage, so slightly higher interest rate, self-employed individuals. And it was like touching $3,000 a month for $400,000.
For $400,000.
Right.
Like, what are you buying for $400,000?
Well, that was the mortgage amount. So they were selling a home, buying another home, had a down payment and everything else. But it's still a very difficult pill to swallow, right?
But it's a different conversation.
It
and
absolutely
the problem is that as a first-time buyer, you don't have the luxury of a home to sell and some equity that you've made.
No question.
You're brand spanking new in the market. You don't have any of that. So that is a tough pill to swallow.
So if I was a first-time home buyer, what would be your advice?
Stay home with your mom and dad and save up some money.
Yeah. Would you tell those folks to explore duplexes in this market?
If the numbers made sense, I would, because a bank will count
the rental income.
A rental income as part of it, so your qualification wouldn't be as high.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm just worried. I'm worried about the fact that you get in over your head. So, but life doesn't come without risks. If you can afford it, if you have a good job, it's always the right time to buy houses right now. Always, doesn't matter what.
Yeah, it's great.
if you can get into the market. If not, stay home, save money, and you will have your chance.
The first time home buyer scenarios that we're working through right now is, you see them popping up, semi-detached home with a legal basement apartment,
right,
in the low sixes, mid sixes. First time home buyers put a minimum down payment down. They rent out the basement for $2,000 a month. They live upstairs for $2,500 a month, for example. That's a good scenario.
That's doable.
Yeah.
But the one thing I will caution people about is that, you'll hear them say, well, I don't want to be a landlord.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to own a house or not? All my kids did it this exact same way. They all had tenants.
Yeah.
There is no easy route to home ownership. And I'm afraid sometimes that people take for granted just what a beautiful thing home ownership is, but you have to work for it. You have to work for it. Like sometimes you do have to have tenants. You do have to make sacrifices. You don't get to eat out 3 times a week.
It's a great point. I mean, 2 years ago when house prices were escalating, maybe a little before that actually, like pre-2019, I'd say, as we were riding things up pre-pandemic, we would say, hey, you don't qualify for the townhouse, but you do qualify for a condo because I can get you qualified at the time, $350,000, $400,000, but you're going to have to pay some condo fees. And people would always say,
forget it.
I don't want to pay the condo fees. But you're right, like home ownership is work, and sometimes you don't get what you want.
No.
We used to have this concept, I remember, I know you've heard me say this before, the jump house. Not the house you want, but the house that's going to get you into the market, where you're going to make some money, where you're going to move up to the next house, and that sort of thing.
The whole point is to just get in the market, if it's at all possible, and I don't care what you have to do, whether you have to rent rooms out.
Yeah.
I mean,
I did that.
Everything, everybody has.
Yeah.
Everyone has. And that's the one thing I think we've, you look at us baby boomers, and I think we made it look too glorifying.
Yeah.
That, oh yeah, look at us now, we're sitting with all our homes and all the equity, and as a first time buyer, I'll never get in. But we had to make sacrifices in the beginning to be in those houses. It doesn't matter what year you bought. Yeah. There was always a sacrifice to be made.
Absolutely. So the message to those watching is, if you can buy in this market, and if it's affordable,
right,
then you buy.
And honestly, like in this market, duplexes and triplexes right now are cheaper than I've ever seen them.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of them, which was a rarity in 2022. That was the difficult part of 2022. Not how much prices were, is the fact that people were fighting to get into homes. And guess what? We're going to be back there again. It's just not this year and not next year, but it's coming back for us.
Totally. Yeah. And we covered one of your listings last week in a video that we did, 2-bedroom, 1-bath condo, South Barrie, $460,000. It's a great price.
It is a great price.
If you can afford the property, like maybe you're coming up from Toronto and you can put a few $100,000 down on it.
You're right by the GO train.
Like you will make money on that condo.
You will.
There's no question, right?
You will make money pretty much on any piece of real estate you buy right now.
Yeah.
But you need to be able to afford to get into it. You need to be able to afford to carry it.
Yeah.
And you need to be patient.
And nobody has the crystal ball, right? Like nobody has a crystal ball, but we know that real estate values in early 2022 were like much higher than they are currently.
Yes.
We know that real estate values today are much lower than they were at that time.
Correct. And
we also know that real estate values will return to those levels, those early 2022 levels. If not higher at some point. What we don't know
is when.
So Peggy, tell us, more about, the question that everybody has in this market. What's happening to my home value and what can I expect of it? Like, where is it heading?
So October 2023 has not been a pretty month, I'll be honest.
For house values.
But like a stock, you don't necessarily need to sell it when it's down. If you can afford to wait.
That's a great point.
This isn't for the faint of heart. Like I'm not saying wait for 3 months. I'm saying if you can afford to wait for a year, then wait it out.
Yeah.
Until some uncertainty leaves this market. Because even as we saw today, the Bank of Canada dropped, or they said they're holding rates, and the bond market rallied, which means that our fixed rates are going to still keep going up. So that's why I thought it was kind of a nothing sandwich, today's announcement. It doesn't really matter at this point. What I'm trying to tell people is, yes, are we seeing a softer market right now? Yes, we are. Are we dropping our prices right now? Yes, we are. Because people that need to sell need to sell. So if if the numbers come out, don't be shocked when the October numbers come out and they say that we have trended lower. We are trending lower. Things are selling for less money because we don't have the buyers that are qualified to buy properties.
Right.
So if you can afford to wait, then wait it out. But if you're thinking that you wait till the spring and this is all better, there is nothing that we've been told that that's the case. So when I say wait, I'm saying at least a good year.
Yeah, because there's no indicator that, there's no factor that would push home prices lower in the spring.
No.
There's going to be some seasonality. I mean, spring market is always spring market. People come out and buy homes typically in spring market,
Correct.
Right?
However,
Yep.
if they can't qualify,
Totally.
they're not coming out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the problem right now in our market is that things are, very expensive. Rates are very expensive.
Yeah.
So we have very expensive rates and very expensive homes. Something will give. I don't think it's going to be the rates, guys.
So your prediction is that home prices obviously are down right now.
They are.
That they would continue going down throughout the course of the fall and the winter, Q4,
and I'm
Q1.
not talking crash numbers. I'm talking 5 to 10% a month, which hurts. It does hurt.
Yeah, I gotcha. And fast forward to mid 2024, that's when a lot of people and some economists are saying that we may see the first rate decrease. When the first rate decrease comes, do you expect home values to start trending back up?
It all depends, because if the bond market doesn't believe it, or if the world is still in chaos like we have right now, and the bond market doesn't drop, fixed rates won't drop. So it doesn't matter.
Still, in this week's announcement by the Bank of Canada, there was uncertainty. They said, hey, we're pausing, but if inflation doesn't continue to decrease, we will increase.
100%.
Right? That leads to uncertainty. So that bond market and the confidence that I'm talking about, first we have to wait to see if there's going to be another increase by the Bank of Canada.
Right.
And then a pause. And then the first potential decrease. And even at that first potential decrease, or at that first decrease, I don't know if we're going to get the confidence we need to change that bond market trend.
No, because his verbiage will be, yes, we're going to take a step back. We are going to, decrease our rates, but we are watching it carefully.
Yeah.
And we will stop at nothing if we see the things moving in the wrong direction to increase them again.
Because we know that confidence will come out of, say, like 2 or 3 or 4 decreases, right?
Right.
But not from the first one.
No. And the biggest problem is we have no blueprint to what is life like after a pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah.
In modern times, this is the first one. So in the next pandemic, will we know what's going to happen? Yep. But in this pandemic, did we know what was going to happen? Nope.
Well, the last one was, say, 100 years ago. Then the next one might be another 100 years away. And if that's the case, they won't be able to draw from this data anyways.
Yeah.
But we do these videos every single month. And the agenda within these videos is just simply to provide facts about the current market, interest rates, where things have been, where they currently are, and where we think they may be heading. Now, because we're going to be doing these every single month, we would encourage you to post your comments below, questions, and topics that you want to see us address in next month's video, because we're going to be back on talking about market stats, home prices, the results of those October numbers, and what we see in the months ahead. Thanks very much for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day.